Hi there. Welcome to Rabe Creations podcast, episode number 2. My name's Nicole, and I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, here in Canada, where I live with my husband Barry, my son Riley, and our wonderful Rottweiler named Grace. So before I get into anything today, I do have to give a shout out to my son Riley. He was the mastermind behind the editing of podcast number 1, of episode number 1. And will also be the man behind the scenes in episode number 2. He will eventually teach his old mother, this old dog, some new tricks, and teach me how to do it. But until he gets all the bugs worked out, he's just doing it himself, and he did a fantastic job. It's so wonderful to have him being so supportive. So as I said, this is the Rabe Creations podcast, where I talk about crochet and sewing, book recommendations, and all the crafty things that I love to do on a daily basis. Let's get right into it, shall we? Start out with what I'm wearing. I am wearing my Lost Souls Skull Shawl. It's designed by Marietta Roy, and it was a free pattern available on Ravelry. I wear this quite often. I've made a few of them. I've got one up in my shop right now. I do have an Etsy shop, and I have one in the shop right now. I do wear it on a regular basis, and it's such a great conversation starter. Normally people will look at it and see it as a shawl, and then they do that second take where they've made out some of the motifs and all of a sudden recognize that it's skulls. Which is a lot of fun. I get a lot of compliments on it. I've directed a lot of people to the pattern. I love this shawl. The fabric, the yarn that it's made out of is just a acrylic yarn. I honestly can't tell you what yarn it was. It was donated to me in a very large stash, destashing that a friend's mom did. It came without a ball band. It does have some sheen to it. It's quite soft, but I know it's 100% acrylic. So that's my Lost Souls Skull Shawl. If anybody is interested, it is available on Ravelry. Go check it out. It's quite easy to do. Once you understand the motif and you start working them, you can memorize it quite quickly. So it does become something that you don't need to keep referring back to the pattern, although the pattern is very well written, so there was no problems in following it at all. On to part 2. Right, so I thought we could take some time and talk about my one and only finished object. I did talk about this a little bit last podcast, as it was a half-finished object last podcast. So, living in my Crafty Ocelot bag. Crafty Ocelot is a Etsy shop where I purchased this fantastic bag. So, within the bag are my finished socks. So last week, as I said, I did have one of the socks completed last week, or last podcast, it was 2 weeks ago, and now I have done its pair. I don't usually get that whole second sock syndrome. I love wearing crochet socks, so for me to not do the second sock kind of takes away from the purpose of doing the socks. I wear them almost every day. Will be until the weather gets a little bit warmer out. But yeah, they go into active use as soon as they're done. I don't have any sock blockers. I apologize. I'm going to be putting that on my must-get list, making it a little bit easier to show them to you on the podcast. But as I said last week, the yarn that I used was a yarn colorway by Little Bean Crochet. It's, again, another Etsy shop. It is on her everyday sock base, which is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And the colorway is Divination, which of course is a Harry Potter colorway. I love this yarn. I raved about it last podcast, and I'm going to rave about it again. It is absolutely beautiful. The depth of color is fantastic. It's got blues, it's got purples, it's got grays. It's just fantastic. And you know, it crocheted up so well. Sometimes the hand-dyed yarns don't necessarily lend themselves to crochet quite as nicely as this. Sometimes you get the yarns that really, really pool. This one didn't do that at all. I absolutely love this yarn and this colorway. It was easy to work with. It wasn't splitty. It was a treat to work with. I really enjoyed it. Now the toes, because as I said last time, gotta have my contrasting toes, are done in a mini that I purchased from the Wool Baron, which is a local dyer to me. She lives in Chestermere, which is just outside of the city of Calgary. And I picked up a whole bunch of her minis. Again, yet another Etsy shop. And it looks like it was meant to be together. The gray matches almost identically, which is fantastic. The pattern came from the Step Into Crochet book by Ron Strong. And I did talk about it quite in depth last week, so I won't go into in depth in it this week. But it is the Mordecai sock. It has some nice ribbed, nice cabling detailing on the cuff. And it's a long cuff. The cuff and leg are sort of one. It doesn't have a separate cuff. And then the body of the sock is done in an extended single crochet. And then the toe is done in just a regular single crochet. So overall, quite pleased with how these turned out. As I said, they are my only finished object for the week. I don't have any sewing to show you this week, or this podcast, because again, it's been 2 weeks. I tend to find that my crochet projects are something that I can, pop into my bag and take with me, work a row or two here, a row or two there, and everything works out okay with it. With sewing, I need time, and I haven't had days off together in this past little while. Things have been a little bit crazy at work. We had inventory, we've got people going on holidays, so I've only been getting 1 day off and then working, and then 1 day off and then more shifts. And I find that that's not quite enough to get my teeth into a sewing project. I do have something planned that I'll share with you in upcoming projects, but nothing has been completed on the sewing front as of yet. So this is my completed object. Alright, so let's get into some works in progress, so things that I have on the hook at the moment. So first off, living in my Harry Potter bag, I get tons and tons of tote bags. Working in a bookstore, when there's major book releases, this is when Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, when it released, there's always totes and stuff around, so I have lots of tote bags that I tend to use for my projects. I find them quite useful for that. So living in this bag is my Treasure Island shawl. Now this shawl is done by Hannah Siegmund is the designer. She is from the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast. I'm sure you have already seen her. If not, go check her out. She is a wonderful podcaster. Such a kind and generous person. I really enjoy watching Hannah. She just published this pattern, and it is available, again, on Ravelry. It is a paid-for pattern, so I can't show you too many details, but it is wonderful. You can work it in any weight yarn. I chose fingerling weight because I have a lot of it, and it was time to do a project in fingerling outside of socks. I know, blasphemy, right? I love making socks, but I had that motivation to try something else with this skein. Now, when I show you the skein, it's a little, how shall I put this? It's not spring. This is a fall colorway, but it's something that I love. Beautiful colors. Let me just pull it out and show you. Isn't that pretty? Oh my goodness. So this is, I am still working on the increases. I only started this yesterday, so I haven't gotten real far in it yet, but oh my goodness, it's working up so nicely. It's got a nice open weave. It has a detailing down here that's a little bit more of a lace pattern. It's working up wonderfully well. Super easy to understand pattern. So well written. Hannah has done an amazing job with this. If you get a chance, go check it out on Ravelry. It is well worth the cost. Now, the yarn, let's talk about the yarn a little bit, shall we? As you can see, I wind all my own balls. I don't have a Swift, so I wrap the skein around my neck and wind it by hand, and to me, it's a part of the process. I quite enjoy the winding. I know it can cause hand cramps if you do it too much, but to me, it is just part of the process, so it's something I really enjoy doing. But the yarn itself is from another local yarn dyer. I do try really hard to put money back into local dyers, local businesses, small businesses. I think it's a really important thing to do to support those around you. That being said, I do order from Etsy and from across the world, as you'll find out soon. But when I can, I do try and support my local dyers as much as possible. So this yarn came from Polka Dot Creek, which is in Airdrie, Alberta, another town just outside of Calgary. Shelley DuPont is the proprietress of Polka Dot Creek. The colorway is called Pumpkin Patch. And again, it kind of made me laugh because we're just starting to get into spring and I'm working on fall colors. Something about this was speaking to me, and you know what? When the yarn speaks to you, you gotta go with it. It is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It's fabulous. It's nice and soft. It's easy to work with. And it seems to be working up really nicely in this pattern. Now for my progress keeper that I use on my projects when I take the needle out, so when I'm between working on it, I always hold my stitch with a progress keeper. I find it much better than trying to just leave the hook in the project, because inevitably the hook gets pulled out and then stitches come undone and chaos ensues. So to me, having a little progress keeper. Now going with the rather fall, sort of Halloweenish theme of this colorway, I went with a little skull progress keeper. Now I did show you this last podcast. It is from Knit 1 Crochet 2 or Crochet 2 Knit 1. I will put her name in the drop down bar right below, so that you can contact that seller if you'd like. Again, a seller through Etsy and a Canadian seller as well. So not quite local, a couple of provinces over, but Canadian nonetheless. So yeah, that is the Treasure Island Shawl, again by Hannah Siegmund, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I am so enjoying working this pattern. Thank you, Hannah, for coming up with such a fun, easy to do pattern, and I do recommend it for anybody who is looking for something. And you know what, you don't have to do it in a fall color. You could easily do it in a spring color. In the fingerling weight, it's going to be perfect for a summer type shawl. So I have something else on the hook. Now this project is something I've been working on for a little while now, but I will show it. My first love when it comes to crochet, as well as in my Etsy shop, are baby blankets. I don't know why. It's been many years since I've had my own baby. My youngest baby is well into his 20s. But I love doing baby blankets. Maybe it's the speed at which they can get done, and you know, you can try new things and move on to a new one. So this stitch is the tulip stitch. I mean, it's been around for a long time. I just sort of did the stitches and threw them together on my own. It is about that far done. So I would say about halfway to or maybe a little less than halfway to being complete. It is quite stitch intensive. In between the tulip motifs are 6 rows of just a single crochet and then back into a tulip motif. I think it's beautiful, and I think it screams spring. The only thing that I'm not looking forward to, do you see these ends? I will be weaving ends till the cows come home. Oh my goodness. Now there are some ends. Thank goodness I'm one of those people who doesn't mind terribly weaving in ends. It can be kind of mindless in front of the TV, but that, my friends, is a lot of ends. but beautiful. I am very pleased with how this is turning out. So the yarns that I'm using, two different types of yarns in this, all of them a 3-weight. There is Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly. Oh yeah. In sort of the tealy green and the yellow. And then I have Red Heart TLC Baby. This was again part of a de-stash. So I'm not even sure how old some of this yarn is. Well, not the Snuggly Wuggly, that just came from Michael's. But the TLC Baby in the sort of minty green and the white, I don't even know how old this is. I don't know if you can still buy this yarn. I've never seen it in my local Michael's shop. And I'm assuming that that's where this lady would have got it from. I could be wrong. It's working up quite nicely. It is a little bit thinner than the Snuggly Wuggly, but it seems to be playing together quite nicely in the blanket. And I should have more than enough to get through the blanket. So yeah, that is my second work in progress for this week. My tulip spring garden blanket. Oh, and I should show you the little stitch marker. Progress Keeper. It is a little flower, which I thought went very well with the flower motif, because you got to keep it all going together. So finally, I'd like to talk to you about a progress, well, no, it's not even a progress. What the heck am I saying? It is a project. There we go. That's the word. It is a project that I will be starting. I haven't started it yet, but it is, I have everything I need now to do it. Now I just need time. Yes, it is a sewing project. So I dove deep into my own fabric stash, and I found this beautiful, soft fabric. The colors are very, very subtle. It is roses on sort of a beige background. It is at least 2 to 3 meters of fabric here. I don't know when I bought it. I don't know where I bought it from, but it was living in my stash. And I think this is going to make a beautiful, beautiful spring blouse. So the pattern that I'm going to use is actually a simplicity pattern. And yes, it did. It came from one of my magazines. It was a free pattern in with one of the Sew magazines, and that's what it's called, Sew Magazine, another UK publication. And although the pattern suggests using sort of a fancier type fabric, I think this lightweight cotton is going to be just fine. And I plan on doing pattern A with the longer sleeve, so it's got like a 3/4 sleeve. And I love the way it's cut a little bit lower in the back, so it's got that back, the back hem is lower than the front. Kind of nice to cover the booty, if you know what I mean. It's got some pleating in the front, which makes it a little bit more roomy. It's a very drapey shirt, which I think will be very flattering. And it's going to be in that nice lightweight fabric, so it'll be great for summer, spring and summer. Hopefully, next weekend, I actually have 3 days off in a row. Miracle! It's going to be so wonderful, and it means that I'm going to have some time to get to my sewing. I may even have this completed. Ooh, that's a big promise, but I may have this completed for the next podcast. I am really looking forward to this. It is going to be absolutely stunning. So that's my 2 projects on the go and 1 project almost on the go. And that's it for the segment. All right, so I have some things to show you, things that I have recently acquired and added into my stash, so to speak. So first off, my son, for my birthday, ordered me, sorry for crinkling, some huge foam floor tiles. These are going to be awesome for blocking projects. I didn't have any real large project blockers. I was just using drying racks and stretching things out by hand, but this is going to be so much better for shawls and even some of my baby blankets. There are 6 tiles of that size, so square footage is amazing. So thank you, Riley, for supporting your mother yet once again in her crafty endeavors and getting me those for my birthday. They are going to come in super, super handy. So on a yarny front, there have been a few acquisitions over the past 2 weeks. First off, I have to give a shout out to Holly from the Yarn Journey Crochet podcast. I've been watching her podcast for a little while now, and entered one of her YouTube giveaways, and I won! I love winning things, and I won. So she sent some yarn my way. It's very nice, and I was quite thrilled. So it is paint box yarn. I've never used paint box yarns before. It's not something that I can get easily in a local setting, so it's something I've never used, but I've heard about it a lot. So yeah, I was intrigued. We're intrigued about the things that we can't get locally. And she sent 3 balls of Paintbox Simply DK in this beautiful purple shade. It is color 142. So apparently they don't give color names to their yarns, just color numbers. But I do have three skeins or balls of this beautiful purple color. Again, fabulous color for spring, Holly. Thank you so much. I haven't quite got a project planned for this yet. I have to wait for the yarn to speak to me. It's how I roll. But wow, isn't that pretty? Now I recognize and I apologize that I tend to move the product around a lot when I'm talking about it. I talk with my hands a lot, so I tend to move around a lot when I'm speaking. I am trying to make a conscious effort to hold things still so that, I don't know, you can actually see them. So this is me holding the yarn still for you. So besides the purple, she also sent 2 balls of paint box in the Simply Aran weight, 1 blue and 1 pink. So the blue is color 235 and the pink is color 249. And again, these are a Aran weight, so a little bit thicker than the purple, and such pretty colors. I do so many baby sweaters and hats and booties, and these are going to come in so handy. So Holly, thank you so much for your generosity. And they got here really quickly. She and I were both sort of impressed at the speed of both the United States Postal Service and the Canada Post Postal Service. Wow, who'da thunk it? But yeah, some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful colors. And now, I have the first podcast, crochet podcast, or I guess it wasn't even a crochet podcast, the first yarn podcast that I ever watched was Stranded Dye Works, Amy, from Stranded Dye Works in the UK. She sort of hooked me on podcasts. After I watched that first one of hers, I was intrigued. I was like, what is this? This is something I could really enjoy. And it was from there that my podcast journey began, with finding different podcasters and eventually doing it myself. Now, I have always been a little gun shy about ordering any yarn from the UK because I was afraid of the cost of shipping. I know when we ship things into the UK, they get hit with huge tariffs and taxes that they have to pay on product coming in, and I was really fearful that that was going to happen with product coming out as well. It doesn't. I did not have to pay anything extra for this yarn. Yes, I did. I ordered yarn from Amy. So Stranded Dye Works had a shop update on, I believe it was February 24th or 23rd. It was right around my birthday, so I treated myself. I have been coveting some of her colorways forever. Now the one that I want to get more than anything wasn't available, so I will still be trying to find that one. But I ordered 2 skeins of yarn. So first, I'll show you her card. So it is Stranded Dye Works, and I love her little tagline. It says, "Great yarn and fiber dyed in Great Britain." How cute is that? So yes, Stranded Dye Works, she does have a podcast on YouTube, and she is running her own yarn, hand-dyed yarn shop. It is not through Etsy, it is on her own, so if you would like to check that out, it is strandeddyeworks.co.uk. So please give it a look. She is amazing, and if you haven't seen her podcasts, you have to watch. The energy that she brings to her podcasts is absolutely remarkable. So give her a look, but let me show you the wonderful, wonderful yarn that came in the mail. Oh, aren't those fabulous? So let me talk to you about them one at a time. I'm going to start with this one, and I'm trying to hold it still. So it is, as I said, Stranded Dye Works, and it is on her solo base. So it is 100% superwash merino single ply fingerling weight yarn. So it will not be used for socks. I don't like doing socks out of anything that doesn't have nylon in it because I find that they just don't last and I go through them so quickly. So I am going to have to find some projects to work both of these skeins of yarn in. Isn't this gorgeous? So the colorway is called Yesterday's Bouquet, and it is absolutely stunning. It's very soft in its colors, not pastel, just faded, like Yesterday's Bouquet. So very aptly named, Amy. Well done. But it's pinks, and it's got some yellows and some beautiful faded greens and blues, and oh, it is just sensational. I am in love with this colorway. Now, the second skein I got is Amy's Valentine's colorway, so it's only available right around Valentine's Day. And again, it is on a solo base, which is 100% superwash merino single ply fingerling weight yarn. And it is called Anti-Valentine. It is amazing. So it's quite dark. It's got looks all the way black to me, all the way through the purple spectrum into a very, very faded purple. So the full purple spectrum into so dark purple that it almost looks black. So actually it kind of goes from pink into purples into so dark that it's black. This is fantastic. And again, this is going to have to be a shawl or maybe some fingerless gloves, a hat. I'm not sure yet. It hasn't spoken to me. It hasn't told me what it wants to become. But oh, I am absolutely thrilled with this yarn. And I am so glad that I finally ordered from Stranded Dye Works. If you haven't seen her podcast, as I said, please go check it out. She is absolutely amazing. And her yarn, well, it speaks for itself. I would highly, highly recommend everyone order a skein of Stranded Dye Works yarn. So we've come to the segment that I like to call From the Bookshelf. As I have stated previously, I am a bookseller by day, a crocheter and crafter by night. So I always am reading. I've always got a book or two or three on the go. So I would love to be able to do some book recommends on a regular basis for you. Now, last podcast I talked about a series of books that I had just started by Charlene Harris called, they take place, it's the Midnight Texas series. The first one was called Crossroads. The second book in the series is called Day Shift, and the third book is called Night Shift. So over the past 2 weeks, I did manage to read the book 2 and book 3 of the series. Unfortunately, she only wrote it as a trilogy. These books got better as they went, so by the third one, I was completely and totally hooked, and there aren't going to be any more. I'm sad. Now, she did tie up most of the ends of the storyline, so it's not like we were left hanging, but so much more could have happened to these characters, and I'm kind of sad that I won't get to read more about the characters living in Midnight Texas. But yeah, so here are the books. Day Shift was the second one, and then Night Shift was the third. It is a quick little trilogy. Now, Charlene Harris does a lot of sort of cozy mystery type books, as well as her Sookie Stackhouse novels. This sort of is a combination of those. It's got a lot of characters. In fact, almost all of the characters are borrowed from her other series, which is kind of fun. So if you've read her other books and haven't read this series yet, you will recognize a number of the characters within the series as having come from other series, which is kind of neat. But it does have elements of that cozy mystery as well as the supernatural type stuff. So it's a great, fast, easy, fluffy, entertaining read. So if you're looking for beach read, if you're looking for something that you would enjoy taking with you on a holiday, or perhaps if you've just got some time off and you're looking at a staycation, this trilogy might be just up your alley. It is a fantastically well-written, easy to read, page-turning, and as I said, the further into the trilogy you get, the faster the pace is. So yeah, if you like reading for pleasure and sort of that fluffy, cozy mystery type read, I highly recommend the Midnight Texas series by Charlene Harris. I think that just about brings us to the end of today's podcast. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you so much if you've stuck through it, if you've stuck with me this long in my second ever episode of Rabe Creations podcast. This is so much fun to do. I thought I would be a lot more self-conscious, and it's a lot of fun, and I hope that someone out there will watch this and gain some enjoyment from it. If you have watched and you've enjoyed what you've seen, please, please, please give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. It's the only way for the video to be sort of recommended to others other than word of mouth. So I would really, really appreciate it if you would do that for me, just to get it out there, get it into people's suggested videos. I'm having a lot of fun with this. So I plan to see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Rabe Creations podcast. However, in the meantime, and in between time, if you would like to contact me or stay in touch, I am active on Instagram, where I am Nicole_Rabe Creations. And I am also on Ravelry as Rabe Creations. So absolutely feel free to pop me a message, let me know that you've watched. That would be fantastic. And I've mentioned it a few times, I do have an Etsy shop, so feel free to come on over there and take a look at what I'm doing over there as well. So once again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me in this little cozy corner of the interwebs for my contribution to the fiber arts community. Yeah. So until next time, bye.